Sorry about that. We're going to continue with the book of Hosea. So Hosea was given a commandment to marry a prostitute. So with some of the younger kids, you can call her a harlot, or you can say a sinful woman who, I don't know how we want to state it. But for the older kids, for the high school kids, let's call her a prostitute so that they know exactly and they get the picture here. So he's told to marry Gomer, who's a prostitute. This was symbolic of God's relationship with Israel, who had become, in a sense, like a harlot. So Israel became like a harlot. Why? Because she kind of sold herself out to other gods in order to receive things, whatever it was. You remember, like, the Israelites were always asking for one thing or another, food or water or whatever. So here it looks like they've turned on God and they've like sold themselves into prostitution away from God. So that's why the book of Hosea, again, the prophecies, there are books that or stories that really happened, that really took place, but they're also very symbolic of what was going on or what would come. So Hosea marries this prostitute, and it shows that just like Israel left God, but God still loves her, and that's why Hosea marries her. So Hosea names his children Jezreel, Lo Ruhamah, and Lo Amai, which means God scatters, not pitied, and not my people. Those are great names for kids. Just think about the psychological damage done there.
The mom's name is Gomer.
Yeah, and then the mom's name is Gomer. So, again, all this is symbolic. Gomer seeks other lovers and deserts Hosea. And that's exactly what Israel did. She seeks other gods and other, maybe if not actual like gods, maybe things in place of gods, like material things. So in spite of the depth to which her sin carries her, Hosea redeems her from the slave market and restores her. So she goes all the way to a slave market. Her life is a complete mess, and Hosea still loves her and goes and rescues her. And this, again, is the story of God coming and rescuing Israel. Because of this experience, Hosea can feel the pain that God experiences by Israel cheating on him. Hosea's love for Gomer reflects God's love for Israel. Unfortunately, because Israel's arrogance, idol worship, and disobedience, Israel will be captured and divided. Ultimately, God punishes Israel out of his love for them in order to cause them to eventually repent and be saved. So then we move on to the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is one of the greatest prophets. The previous prophets were known as minor prophets, Amos and Hosea, but Isaiah is one of the four major prophets. Isaiah was married and had two children. Their names are really long, so I'm not even going to try and pronounce them. He had given them also symbolic names to show that God was about to bring judgment against the nation of Judah, which is the southern kingdom. Now, previously, the southern kingdom of Judah was spared when Israel was taken into captivity, but we're going to see that the southern kingdom is also going to be captured. So, this is one of the most important things for us as Orthodox Christians. In Isaiah 6, he has a vision of the heavenly liturgy. The Orthodox liturgy is modeled after the liturgy in heaven, which we know something about because of the vision of Isaiah. Other places that we know what heavenly liturgy looks like, the book of Revelation, and some other Old Testament books. There are many quotes throughout the book of Isaiah which are used in our liturgical services. One of the seraphim, the highest ranks of angels, used tongs to put a hot coal in Isaiah's mouth. And this is a foreshadowing of Holy Communion. What the seraphim says after, he says, "Behold, this has touched your lips. Your lawlessness is taken away, and your sin is cleansed." That's what I say as a priest after I take communion. But I say it to myself. Lo, this has touched my lips and taken away all my iniquity and purged my sin. The communion is seen as a hot coal because Christ's body and blood are as a hot coal. For those who partake worthily, it burns away their sin, but to those who approach the chalice unworthily, it is like fire to their soul. This is why preparation for Holy Communion is very important. And maybe you can make a comment about that. Preparation for Holy Communion, just so you know, things like doing your prayers. And it's more than just those 3 prayers that we do ahead of time, right before communion and liturgy. There's a whole bunch of prayers. If you do it right, probably take about 45 minutes to do all those prayers. So I'm not asking them to do all that. Also, preparation for communion is first and foremost to be baptized and chrismated. Also to fast, unless you have a blessing of the priest not to fast for medical reasons. And then to be living your life in a way that is Christian. So to not have any enemies or not be at odds with anybody. To live your whole life, in communion. So there are certain sins that break you away from communion from the church. And the priest has to give you like a time away from communion. It's not because the priest is mean. It's because you've, in reality, already moved yourself away from God through your sin. And it's going to take a little while for you to reflect on that and repent and come back to communion. In chapter 7 of Isaiah, he makes a famous prophecy concerning the birth of Christ. Behold, the virgin will conceive and bear a son, and you shall call his name Emmanuel. And chapter 9 contains a prophecy that is quoted in the Great Compline service, which is, God is with us. Remember we sing that, God is with us, understand all you nations and submit yourselves, for God is with us. And after each verse it says, for God is with us. So chapter 9 is pretty much that whole hymn that we sing during Great Compline, and explains who Jesus will be to his people. Ultimately, the evil northern kingdom will be defeated and taken as captives into the Assyrian Empire. The southern kingdom of Judah will be miraculously spared for the meantime. Isaiah saw this as a sign of God's mercy. But eventually, of course, we know it'll be taken into captivity as well. Chapters 49 through 57 focus heavily on the Messiah, Christ. Chapter 53 of Isaiah, although not found in the Children's Bible, is also very significant. So it's something you probably want to read, chapter 53 of Isaiah. It has remarkable prophecies about the atonement of the Messiah. Along with Psalm 21, this chapter gives a chilling account of the crucifixion of Christ centuries before it happens. And that's the book of Isaiah in a nutshell. I was saying before this class started that the book of Isaiah, we could spend the whole year just studying that. I mean, it's not only very big, but it's very deep with theology. So this is just a brief overview. I can't remember if in the future we go into it anymore, but I think in the coming lessons there will be some jumping around from books going back and forth. Any questions on this lesson?